What if Ned Stark told Jon Snow the truth from the very beginning? The North would fracture, Daenerys might never come to Westeros, and the Iron Throne's fate would burn in dragonfire. Jon Snow was never a bastard. Not truly. And what if from the very start, before the Wall, before the Night's Watch, before the battles and betrayals, Ned Stark had told the boy the truth? That his name was not Jon Snow but Aegon Targaryen, true-born son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. It began quietly. One cold morning in Winterfell, when Jon was barely 10, Ned sat across from him in the Godswood, the old weirwood's red eyes staring down like a silent witness. His voice didn't shake, but his soul did. He told Jon of Lyanna, his mother, of her love for Rhaegar, of the war built on a lie, of the promise he made as she died, her body soaked in blood and silence. Jon didn't cry. He didn't even breathe, not for what felt like hours. "I'm not your son," he whispered, numb. Ned reached out, but Jon pulled away. The cold wasn't from the air anymore. It was inside him. Sansa and Arya weren't truly his sisters. Robb, his brother in every way that mattered, was his cousin. Everything he believed about who he was, the shame he carried for being a bastard, it cracked, shattered, and vanished. But something darker took its place. Catelyn Stark was the first to unravel. She had never looked at Jon with warmth, but now her glances turned colder, sharper. When word spread through the castle that Jon was a Targaryen, the halls fell silent when he entered. Servants stopped mid-step. Even Maester Luwin questioned Ned's timing. "The realm is not kind to Targaryens," he warned. Not even half of one. Robb was different. He struggled, he tried, but there was always something unsaid between them now. That bitter tension, Jon's blood claim to the throne of Westeros, could not be ignored, and in King's Landing whispers began. Ravens flew south. Varys read every word with wide, knowing eyes. "A dragon in the north," he muttered. "Too young to rule, too dangerous to ignore." Littlefinger smiled. "Chaos was coming." "Okay, pause. Are you feeling that? Because this is where it starts getting insane. The very foundations of Westeros just shifted, and we're not even at war yet. But trust me, we're about to be Jon's identity spreading through the Seven Kingdoms. Wasn't just a matter of politics. It was a bomb ticking under the fragile peace. House Stark was no longer seen as a united front. Rivals smelled blood. And down in Dragonstone, where a certain exiled princess stared across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen heard a name that cut through the wind. Aegon. And just like that, she wasn't the last dragon anymore. But Jon didn't want a throne. He didn't care about crowns, kingdoms, or castles, at least not yet. He still chose the Night's Watch when the time came, believing it was his duty. But he wasn't just another recruit anymore. Castle Black had never seen a Targaryen in black. The old bear knew it. So did Ser Alisa, who whispered to the others, "We've got a dragon sleeping in our hall." And beyond the wall, something ancient stirred. The White Walkers marched. But this time the boy at the wall had fire in his blood. Hold up, can you imagine this? Jon Snow, Targaryen prince, walking the frozen battlements of the wall not as a bastard, but as the living heir to the throne of Westeros. This isn't just a name drop. This changes everything. But here's the kicker. What would happen when Daenerys finds out she's not the only heir? What would the lords of Westeros do when asked to choose between the wolf dragon of the north and the exiled queen of fire and blood? And what would Cersei do if she saw two Targaryens rising instead of one? We're just getting started. Want to hear what happens when Jon and Daenerys finally meet? Not as lovers, but as rivals. She stood barefoot at the edge of Dragonstone's cliffs, wind whipping her silver hair into a storm around her. The sea below was rough, but her thoughts were rougher. Daenerys Targaryen, breaker of chains, mother of dragons, queen in exile, was no longer the last of her line. Aegon, she said under her breath. Not the one her brother had whispered about. Not the dead child of Elia Martell. No, another Aegon, the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar. Her nephew. She didn't believe it at first. How could she? Every raven carried another rumor, but this one had weight. Varys believed it. Even Tyrion had started pacing the war room like a man with sand slipping through his fingers. "He's in the north?" she asked. "At the wall," Tyrion confirmed. "Serving in the Night's Watch." "Serving," she repeated, almost laughing. "The heir to the Seven Kingdoms is guarding ice and stone?" "It speaks to his character," Tyrion offered, pouring himself a drink. and perhaps his disinterest in crowns, but Daenerys didn't smile. Okay, but let's just pause here real quick. Can you feel the tension building? Daenerys has spent her entire life believing she's the rightful ruler of Westeros. And now a boy in black from the cold north has a better claim. This isn't just family drama. This is a war waiting to happen. Back at Castle Black, Jon felt the pressure closing in. The watch hadn't changed, but the way they looked at him had. He trained alone now. Ate alone. He had become a symbol. A target. Sam tried to keep things normal, but even he stumbled. "Your Grace," he joked one morning. Jon glared at him. "Don't call me that." "But you are—" "I'm not," Jon snapped. "I never asked for that. I'll never sit a damn throne, but destiny doesn't care what you ask for." Meanwhile, word reached Winterfell. Sansa was older now, wiser. She'd learned to listen first, speak later. And when she heard Daenerys was sailing toward Westeros, she understood immediately what that meant. "She won't share the throne," Sansa said to Bran, her eyes narrowed. "She won't share him either." Bran tilted his head, emotionless. Their paths are intertwined. That didn't comfort her. Arya had returned by then, blade sharp, voice sharper. She didn't care about politics, but she cared about Jon. "If she hurts him, I'll put a knife in her eye." Back in King's Landing, Cersei Lannister raised her eyebrows at the news. 2 Targaryens, not 1. Her spies confirmed it. She downed her wine, smirking. "Let the dragons tear each other apart. I'll rule the ashes." And she meant it. Meanwhile, Daenerys and Jon's meeting wasn't one of passion or poetry. It was politics from the first step. "You bend the knee to your queen," Daenerys said flatly. "I serve the realm," Jon replied, just as flat. "Not titles." The silence stretched between them. The dragons snarled from above. "I am your queen." "You are my blood," Jon countered, "but blood doesn't rule me." Damn, let's stop right there, because this right here is the heart of the war. Jon's honor against Daenerys' destiny. 2 dragons born of fire and frost, raised on opposite sides of a broken world. One won't bow. The other won't share. You already know this is going to explode, and it does. Their advisors try to bridge the gap. Tyrion pleads for unity. Davos tries to find middle ground. But the realm doesn't wait. The White Walkers march, and the dead don't care who wears a crown. But even with that threat looming, neither side blinks. In the crypts of Winterfell, Jon confronts his past. Lyanna's statue stands before him, cold, silent. He remembers Ned's voice in the Godswood all those years ago. "You must never tell. For your safety, for theirs. But the secret's out now. Hand safety is a dream long dead. And as the armies gather and snow falls on dragon wings, the realm stands on the edge. Not just between the living and the dead, but between 2 Targaryens who might save the world or destroy it. The world or destroy it." The battlefield was quiet just for a breath. Snow drifted down like ash over the frozen north, settling on steel, leather, and dragon scale. Jon stood atop the battlements of Winterfell, Ghost at his side, watching the horizon darken. The Night King was coming. Not in days, not in hours, in moments. Daenerys stood beside him, cloaked in white, her silver hair braided like a crown. Behind her Drogon loomed, tail twitching, black wings stretching in the chill air. Rhaegal circled above, waiting for Jon's command. But it wasn't unity they felt. It was pressure, unspoken tension. The whole realm now knew what they were, what he was. And even in this final hour, Daenerys hadn't said the words Jon had been waiting to hear. "You still want the throne?" he said quietly, watching the white mists beyond the trees. "I was born for it," she replied, not turning. "I wasn't." She finally looked at him, something fierce and sad in her eyes. "But the realm will want you. They'll follow your name, not mine." "I never asked them to," he said, voice low. "And I never will. But you exist, Jon, that's enough. Oh my God, you feel that. Right here, this is where their bond starts to fray. Not because they don't love each other, but because the truth is heavier than either of them can carry, and the dead don't care for royal blood. They came like a wave of silence. First the wind dropped, then the darkness thickened, and then screams. White smashed into the front lines, crashing like ice through fire. Blades clanged, horses reared, men died screaming. Jon mounted Rhaegal, gripping his sword as the dragon soared into the storm. Below, Daenerys screamed, "Dracarys!" and Drogon unleashed hell on the dead. But even dragonfire couldn't stop death itself. The Night King rode his undead beast through the clouds, spear in hand. Eyes locked on Jon, and here's where it gets absolutely mental. because as they clashed above Winterfell, Jon and the Night King spiraled through the air like comets colliding. Rhaegal and Viserion bit and clawed, shaking snow from the sky. Jon leapt from the saddle, sword drawn, landing on the icy beast's back, face to face with death. Below, Arya raced through shadows. Bran sat by the weirwood, eyes rolled back, seeing everything. And in that exact moment, when it all could have ended, Daenerys made her choice. She turned Drogon from the battle and soared toward the Godswood. Tyrion screamed from the walls. Where is she going? The battle's here. But she wasn't chasing victory. She was chasing power. If Bran died, the realm lost its history, its truths, its secrets. And the one secret Daenerys could never allow to live again was Jon's. Wait, what? Did she just... Yes, she did. Dany made the coldest power move of the war, literally. But just as Drogon opened his jaws to burn the Godswood to cinders, Arya leapt from the shadows. One knife, one scream, and suddenly the Night King shattered in ice and silence. The dead fell. The war was over. But the real fight was just beginning. Because what do you do with a queen who was ready to burn the very roots of Westeros to protect her crown? What do you do with a king who never wanted to rule, but suddenly everyone needs him to? The North cheered Jon's name. From Dawn to the Vale, lords declared him rightful king, and Daenerys, she watched from the shadows, and her heart, once full of fire, began to burn in a darker way. Tyrion saw it. You won't share it, will you? He asked one night. There's only one throne, she replied, but Jon didn't want it. He refused the crown again and again, until something changed. Reports came from King's Landing. Cersei was dead, poisoned. The city in chaos. The Iron Throne. Empty Daenerys marched south with her army. Jon stayed behind. Until Arya stood in his path. She'll burn it all, she said, because she has to. If she's not queen, then none of it meant anything. Jon said nothing, just watched the dragons fly south, and finally, he followed. The question is, did he go to stop her? Or to join her? Because the game wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Want to see what happens when Jon walks into the throne room and the last Targaryens stand face to face with destiny? The Iron Throne sat untouched, twisted metal and history forged in fire and blood, waiting in silence. The Red Keep was hollow now. The halls, once echoing with power and whispers, had gone still. Cersei was gone. Jaime too. The lion had fallen. But the dragon had risen. Daenerys stood at the foot of the throne, the fire behind her still flickering from Drogon's breath. The throne room had cracked in places, the walls scorched, the pillars half broken. Ash fell like snow. She stepped forward, slow, reverent, staring at the throne she'd seen in visions. She touched it. Cold, sharp, heavy, just like the truth. Behind her, footsteps. Jon Snow stepped through the shattered doors, his cloak black with soot, his eyes locked on her. She turned, no crown on her head, yet she looked every inch a queen. It's done, she said. The throne is ours. He didn't move. Didn't smile. Yours, you mean, he replied. No, she said, stepping closer. Ours. Okay, hold up. We all knew this moment was coming. But now that it's here, it's not love in the air. It's smoke and knives, because Jon didn't come to bend the knee. He came to decide everything. You were going to burn Bran, he said softly. You were going to kill him to protect your claim. Daenerys flinched. Just for a second, then lifted her chin. To protect our future. He's the past. He's dangerous, and I'm not. Jon stepped closer. What happens when they start chanting my name louder than yours? Do I burn too? Silence. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but rage. I gave everything for this. My brother died chasing it. I was sold like an animal, walked through fire, lost everything, and still I came. I earned this. Jon looked at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. You were never supposed to be like them? I'm not like them? Her voice cracked. I win. Wait, are you hearing this? That's not Daenerys the savior anymore. That's Daenerys the conqueror. And Jon. He's standing in front of the throne like it's a tombstone, but here's where it really breaks. Tyrion enters, his hands bound. He's a prisoner now, accused of freeing Jaime of treason, but he doesn't look afraid. He looks done. You're both fools, he says. The realm doesn't care about blood. It cares about peace, about survival. And if you think it'll kneel to both of you, then burn it all now and be done with it. Jon looks away. Daenerys doesn't. Tyrion, you broke your chains, she says coldly. Now you'll wear none in death. Jon's eyes snap to her. You'd kill him too. If he stands in the way, she says. Yes, that's it. That's the moment, because in Jon's silence, in the stillness between breaths, we see it, he's made his choice, but not yet. Not here, he walks out, snow swirling around him. Ghost follows. The wall seems a lifetime away. That night, he sits by the fire alone. Arya appears from the dark like a shadow. You know what you have to do, she says. He shakes his head. I've had enough of death. She hasn't, Arya whispers. Not until the whole world is ash. And then she hands him something. Not a sword. Not a dagger. A letter. From Bran, just one line. You are the song of ice and fire. And with that, the story flips again. The next morning, Jon walks the halls of the Red Keep. Slowly. Quietly. Every soldier bows. Every servant freezes. Not because he's king, but because they don't know what he is anymore. He reaches the throne room. Daenerys waits for him. Alone, they speak, softly, painfully, words filled with love, loss, and prophecy. She asks him to rule beside her. He holds her close, whispers her name, then draws his blade and everything stops. But wait, do you really think it ends here? Do you really believe that was the only way? Because in this version, things don't go like you expect. Drogon lands outside, roaring loud enough to shake the stones. But he doesn't find his mother's corpse. He finds Jon kneeling, covered in blood. His own, because he couldn't do it. He couldn't kill her, and she couldn't let him live. Oh my God. This is where it breaks you. This isn't just politics anymore. This is tragedy, pure and raw. Jon torn between love and duty. Daenerys devoured by the very destiny she chased. But guess what? She doesn't take the throne either. Not yet, because as Jon bleeds out and Daenerys reaches for the crown, Bran opens his eyes back in Winterfell, and he speaks one name, Drogon. Drogon. The dragon turned mid-flight. Drogon had been spiraling above the Red Keep, circling the tower where Daenerys stood bathed in firelight, where Jon's blood still warmed the stone. But suddenly something shifted in him. His eyes, burning gold, flickered. His wings twitched, and he roared, not in rage but in confusion. Far away in Winterfell, Bran Stark's eyes opened. No one was in the room with him. Maester Vulcan had left hours ago, and Arya was still riding south. Only silence kept Bran company. But inside the silence, the storm was building. Bran wasn't Bran anymore. Not fully. He hadn't been for a long time. The moment he saw the truth of the world, the broken wheel, the rivers of blood, the war that never ended, he had begun planning. And now the time for watching was over. He reached into the storm, into fire, into wings. Drogon's roar cracked the sky. Mid-air, he turned from the city and flew west. Faster than any raven, his shadow swallowed the sun. Daenerys stood at the balcony, confused, watching him disappear. She didn't know what had just happened. And behind her, the blood trail had already started to dry. Jon wasn't dead. Not yet. He crawled from the throne room, breath ragged, hand clutching the wound in his side. The blade had gone deep, but not deep enough. Daenerys had spared his heart. Whether by mercy or hesitation, no one would ever know. He collapsed near the war room, face pressed to cold stone. He thought of Ghost, of Winterfell, of Ned. And in that moment, someone lifted him. Ser Davos. You fool, he muttered, throwing Jon's arm over his shoulder. I told you she wasn't the one. Behind them, unsullied, filled the halls. Grey Worm saw the blood, but not Jon, not yet. Now, okay, here's where things twist hard. Because you thought this was a tragedy. No, this is a game of shadows now. Bran had warged Drogon, and the dragon wasn't flying away. He was flying to Winterfell. Why? Because Bran had seen it. Seen everything. The fire, the throne, the end. And he knew one truth above all others. Neither Jon nor Daenerys could rule Westeros. They had become symbols of division, of bloodlines, of war. And symbols must fall if peace is to rise. In Dragonstone, Varys' old ravens had left behind one more secret. A scroll, hidden, locked in code. Only Tyrion had deciphered it, and it said one thing: the realm belongs to no one. Not fire, not ice. But memory, and Bran? Bran was memory. All right, let's pull back for a second, because this shift right here, this isn't just narrative. It's a total power realignment. Fire and blood are over. The mind rules now. The age of dragons, done. Back in King's Landing, Daenerys sat on the throne. Not crowned, not yet, but she wore the look of a ruler, cold, controlled. Tyrion, still imprisoned, stood before her. "You're alone," he said simply. "I have Drogon." "You had him," Tyrion corrected. "He left you." She didn't answer. But her eyes, they flickered. Jon, meanwhile, was hidden in the crypts, tended by Davos and a handful of northern loyalists. He hadn't woken yet. His wound festered, fever raged, and in that fever he dreamed a hall of snow, a dragon crying in chains, the Iron Throne melting in a pool of black blood, and Bran, always Bran, watching, waiting. Okay, here's a tension bomb for you, because when Jon wakes up, everything is in motion. The North is rallying, Sansa is marching, Arya has reached King's Landing, and Drogon is nearly there. Daenerys thinks she's won. But she's about to find out the realm has other plans. Let's hit the real question now. Who actually deserves the throne? Jon? The reluctant king who nearly died doing the right thing? Daenerys? The liberator turned tyrant, or Bran? The boy who became something else? Because guess what happens next? The Dragonlands, not in King's Landing, but at the gates of Winterfell. Drogon bows his head, eyes locked on Bran. And Bran says two words that change the course of history. It's time, it's time. The gates of Winterfell opened, like the pages of a book Bran had already read. Snow blew in as Drogon lowered his massive head, nostrils steaming, wings tucked tight like folded war banners. The castle's guards froze. Not in fear, though fear was there, but in confusion. A dragon had returned to the north not to destroy but to obey. And Bran Stark, seated in his wheeled chair near the godswood, didn't blink. He simply lifted his hand. Drogon bowed. Sansa arrived moments later, boots crunching on frost, eyes wide but calm. "You watched a dragon," she said, her voice nearly a whisper. "I showed him the truth," Bran replied. "And he chose peace." "Peace?" Sansa scoffed, stepping closer. "Daenerys sits on the throne. Jon is dying in a crypt. What peace is that?" Bran turned his gaze toward the trees. "Not yet, but soon." Back in King's Landing, the air grew thick. Unrest rippled through the capital. With Cersei gone and no formal coronation, Daenerys' grip was made of fear, not loyalty. The Unsullied marched the streets. The people whispered in shadows. Arya had entered the city unnoticed. The faceless training was a ghost at her back. She watched Daenerys from rooftops, from crowds, from the shadows of burned alleys. She had seen enough. And when she found Tyrion in the cells below the Red Keep, the fire in her eyes nearly matched Dany's dragons. "She tried to kill Jon," Arya said. "She failed." "She'll try again," Tyrion replied, leaning against the stone wall. "And she won't fail next time." Arya was quiet. "Then, tell me how to get close." He shook his head. "She's surrounded. But if Bran moves, she might come north. She might try to end the threat." And that's when it all clicked. The trap, the bait, the final game. See, this isn't just war. This is chess. And Bran, he's not playing as a Stark anymore. He's something else. Something beyond blood and banners. He's shaping a new realm. One where thrones aren't taken with fire, but with vision. Let's slow it down for a second. Feel this, the dragon has switched sides. The North is ready. Daenerys thinks she's won, but her throne was built on ash, and ash can't hold the weight of truth. Drogon flew again, and this time Daenerys followed. She didn't come with banners or a crown. She came with fury. "Bran Stark has betrayed me," she told Grey Worm. "He's using my dragon. I will burn Winterfell if I must." Jon awoke to that news, weak, pale, but not broken. "Don't let her do it," he whispered to Davos. "You'll have to stop her yourself," Davos said. "And you better get up fast." "She's already on her way." Sansa stood in the great hall of Winterfell, surrounded by northern lords and loyalists. "She's coming here to destroy what she couldn't control," she said. "If we bend now, there will be no realm left to save." Bran rolled forward, quiet as always. "We won't fight her." "What?" Sansa snapped. "We'll show her," Bran said. "Everything. Because here's the twist. Bran doesn't need swords. He doesn't need blood. He has memory. He's the three-eyed raven. And what Daenerys can't burn is the truth." As Dany's forces approached Winterfell, Arya moved through the trees. She wasn't alone. Gendry had arrived with Stormland's men. Yara brought ships to White Harbor, and Jon, barely able to stand, put on the black again, not as a brother of the Night's Watch, but as a reminder of who he really was, a man who chose duty, not destiny. Daenerys landed outside the gates, her army behind her, Drogon circling above. But when she entered the courtyard of Winterfell, no one drew a blade. No one attacked. Instead, Bran spoke. "You were supposed to break the wheel," he said calmly. "But you became it." "You stole my dragon," she hissed. "I freed him," Bran replied. "And he chose not to burn the world." Daenerys' eyes glistened with rage. "I am the last dragon." "No," Jon said from behind her. "You were." And then Bran opened her mind. One look. One connection. He showed her everything. The Mad King's fire. Rhaegar's love. Lyanna's death. The children burned in Meereen. The vision of King's Landing in ash. The throne made of melted blades. Her future. Her end. She fell to her knees. Drogon landed behind her. But he didn't roar. He didn't move. He bowed to Bran. "Holy hell. Are you seeing this?" Daenerys broken not by steel, but by the weight of her own story. Bran didn't kill her. He unraveled her. The dragon bowed not to a conqueror, but to a keeper of truth. The 7 kingdoms stood still. And in that silence, the wheel finally cracked. But this story's not done yet. What happens when the throne is offered? And no one wants it? What happens when the dragon leaves forever? The Iron Throne was gone. Not just broken, melted, erased by Drogon in a final act of defiance. After Daenerys collapsed in the snow outside Winterfell, shattered not by blades but by visions she couldn't bear to carry, the dragon had risen silently. He didn't attack. He didn't rage. He took her body gently in his claws, and with a mournful roar that echoed from the Dreadfort to the Twins, Drogon flew east, vanished. No one followed. No one tried. The last dragon had left Westeros, and with him, the Age of Fire and Blood ended. Okay, pause. Can you feel this shift? No crown, no coronation, just silence. And in that silence, opportunity. The Game of Thrones didn't end in fire. It ended in vacuum. So what happens when no one wins the game? Who builds the next one? That's where we are now. In the weeks that followed, the lords and ladies of Westeros gathered in Winterfell at Sansa's call. The Vale, the Stormlands, the Reach, even what was left of the Riverlands. They came not for war but for answers. And there in the Hall of the Starks, Bran sat, not as a boy, not even as a Stark, but as the memory of the realm. Tyrion stood to speak first. Slimmer, quieter, tired, but clear. "We've lived under the shadow of fire and ice," he began, "and all we have to show for it is ash and corpses. We need something." "New," the room murmured. Gendry leaned forward. Yara crossed her arms. Sam nodded. Tyrion turned to Bran. "You see the past, all of it. You know what led us here. You don't want power. That's exactly why you should hold it." Bran said nothing for a long time. "Then I will not be king," gasps rippled. "But I will be keeper of kings," he continued. "The realm doesn't need one man's blood to rule it. It needs voices, balance, memory." Sam stood. "A council," he said, "chosen by the kingdoms. A throne by vote, not blood." Even that was revolutionary. Sansa raised her hand. "The North will remain independent," she said. "We will stand beside the realm, but not beneath it." Bran didn't argue. He simply nodded, and so it began. No Iron Throne, no single king, but a circle, a table, a voice for every kingdom, and in the center Bran, not as ruler, but as witness. The living memory to hold them all accountable. Jon. He refused to stay. The truth of what he'd done, of almost killing her, of watching the woman he loved break, was too much. He left without ceremony, north of the wall, Ghost by his side. No crown, no glory, just peace. But the free folk didn't call him Jon Snow anymore. They called him the Last Wolf, and his story became legend. Arya sailed west, chasing what lay beyond the maps. Not for power, not for war, freedom. She vanished into the unknown, a blade at her hip, the wind at her back. Sansa ruled the North not as a queen of pageantry, but of stability. Winterfell grew strong again, not in swords, but in laws, roads, harvests. Tyrion became hand, not to a king, but to the realm itself, and Bran watched. His power wasn't fire. It wasn't steel. It was time, memory. He remembered every broken oath, every war, every peace. He kept them all like stories in a book only he could read. And if another tyrant ever rose, he would know, before they even realized they'd become one. The Game of Thrones ended, not with victory, but with wisdom. Wait, are you feeling that? Because that's not just the end of a story. That's the start of a new age. The wheel didn't get fixed. It got replaced. And you know what's craziest? None of it would have happened if Ned Stark hadn't told the truth. That one choice, revealing Jon's true parentage, rippled all the way to the end of the realm. It broke Daenerys, it freed Bran, it turned Jon into myth, and it changed the very rules of power forever. The winds that once howled through the ruins of King's Landing had quieted. The Red Keep, where the Iron Throne once stood, was being rebuilt stone by stone. Not to house a king, but to host the Council of Realms. No crown sat at its center. No throne loomed above it. Just a round table, carved from the heart of a weirwood tree, with space enough for every voice to be heard. In that final chapter of Westeros' long and bloody saga, there were no more Targaryens, no more Lannisters grasping at power, no more Starks chasing vengeance. There was only memory, and what the realm chose to do with it. Bran the Broken, the three-eyed raven, did not rule in the way the old kings did. He spoke rarely, acted carefully, but his presence alone was enough to remind those at the table the realm remembers. Lords no longer schemed for crowns, they bargained for justice. For grain, for peace. Tyrion Lannister, the man who once drank away his pain in brothels, now served as the voice of order. His quips became law, his sarcasm a compass, and above all he remembered. Not just the dead, but why they died. Sansa Stark, Queen in the North, sent emissaries often, not in chains, not in gold, but in parchment and trade. Her people thrived beneath her rule. The cold no longer felt cruel under her leadership. It felt honest. Arya's ship was last seen passing beyond the Sunset Sea. Some say she found a new world. Others believe she became a ghost story. But to those who knew her, she was never meant for borders. She was wind given shape, and Jon Snow, no one truly knows what became of him. Some say he died beyond the wall, lost to snow and time. Others claim he became the new Mance Rayder, uniting the free folk under a bannerless cause. A few say they've seen him near the Frostfangs, hair gone white, eyes still haunted. But one thing was certain, he never returned. And the realm? It changed, slowly, unevenly. But it changed. Children grew up hearing tales of the last dragon, the wolf who walked into exile, the queen who broke herself to rule the world, and the boy in the chair who remembered everything and ruled nothing. They didn't cheer for kings anymore. They didn't worship fire. They didn't carve gods from old trees or raise swords in the names of long-dead houses. They built libraries, schools, roads. They rebuilt what centuries of war had torn down, and every few years, a new voice joined the council, chosen not by blood or banners, but by merit. By trust, okay, stop right here. Feel that in your chest? That's not just the end of a story. That's the start of a myth, because let's go all the way back to the beginning. What if Ned Stark had told Jon the truth? He did, and it shattered everything. Daenerys burned. Jon bled, the realm broke. But from that break, something better came, not perfect, not clean, but better. The wheel wasn't broken by force. It was broken by truth, by memory. And in the end, the true king wasn't the one with the blood of dragons, or the fire of queens. It was the one who sat still, and watched, and waited. Bran Stark never ruled a kingdom, but he guided a future. And that's how the Game of Thrones finally ended. Not with a blade in the back, not with fire from above, but with a whisper. Remember. Remember.